$62, that's the amount of money that Americans told us last week they spent on average each day. That is roughly where it has been over the last several months. Some weeks it's up a little, some down, but basically no major trend on that, at least in the last several months. The key is, if we go back to last year, we see how much higher this spending was, exactly the same measure. Look back at last June as an example. At about this time, this would have been June '08, we had on average Americans spending over $100 a day. The numbers stayed high through last summer and into last fall, really began to fall at about Christmas time last year, and the numbers have just been pretty bad so far this year, continually, week after week, as you know. Now, we've recently reviewed some attitudinal questions where we ask Americans about their spending, and sure enough, significant majority tell us they are cutting back on spending. They also tell us they are watching how much they're spending very closely. So we put all this together. We just simply have a situation where Americans tell us they're not spending as much and they're watching their spending and so on and so forth. What may be alarming is a question where we said, did you worry about how much you were spending yesterday? And here we have the majority of Americans said no. This could suggest that we've reached a new normal, so to speak, where this lowered level of spending is something that Americans are just accustomed to and aren't really thinking much about. 6 out of 10 Americans say the U.S. economy is getting worse in our weekly average for last week. That is unchanged, still a little more positive than it was earlier this year, but certainly no trend over the last several weeks. Finally, what about the critical measure of hiring? Is your company, we ask employed Americans, hiring people or firing people? Well, there's a 2-point net firing on this. In other words, as you see, 26% of Americans who are working say their companies are firing, 24% hiring. That's that -2. Not changed a lot over recent weeks. We would certainly, as we've said before, like to see that measure move into positive territory where we've got an increased number of American workers telling us that their companies are hiring. I'm Dr. Frank Newport, Editor-in-Chief of the Gallup Poll.